morning, everyone. I see there are a lot of folks hopping on the line right now. My name is Christine. I'm the Director of Member Engagement for the Reno Sparks Chamber. It's great to see all of you this morning. We're going to go ahead and give everyone a couple minutes to hop on the call, since we know that sometimes it takes a couple minutes for people to get settled in. So I'll go ahead and check back in with everyone in about a minute or two. But for now, do we already have Dr. McNeill on the line? I think there she is. Good morning, Dr. McNeill.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I was getting a little nervous because I was like, okay, it's not working. It's great.
Yes, absolutely. So we're just going to go ahead and get started here in about a minute. Where we do have a strict, out of respect to everyone on the call, a strict 30-minute timeline for the call. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started here in a bit here. But we're going to go ahead and proceed with the prepared questions that we've already received from our members to get started. And then for any participant on the call, if you have a question that comes to mind that you'd like to see Dr. McNeill address over the course of the call, just use the chat function in Zoom. Very helpful that way. That way we don't have a ton of people muting and unmuting and mass chaos ensues. So go ahead and use that chat function if you'd be so kind. And we're going to try and carve out a couple minutes at the end of the call in order to open things up to whatever questions you guys have today. So with that, I'll give it maybe 30 more seconds for people to hop on because I'm seeing a lot of new faces popping on board, and we'll get started.
All right.
All right, everyone, let's go ahead and get started. So once again, we're going to go ahead and start off with some prepared questions that you, our members, have already sent in for us to ask Dr. McNeill. And then toward the end of the call, we're going to go ahead and open it up to questions that you have today. So if you do have a question over the course of the call, please use the chat function in order to pose your question. And then toward the end of the call, maybe about 5 to 10 minutes at the end, depending on how much time we have, we'll go ahead and address whatever questions we can. So without further ado, I want to introduce everyone to Dr. Kristen McNeill. She is the interim, she's waving. She is the interim superintendent for the Washoe County School District, but she is no stranger to the district. She moved to the Northern Nevada area in about 1996. She's done everything from teaching grades 2 through 6 at local elementary schools, to being a principal to elementary schools, to, of course, serving in various capacities with district administration. And of course, fast forwarding today, she is hard at work in the trenches on behalf of our educators and kiddos, trying to keep everyone sane and educated. So thank you, Dr. McNeill, for your time today. We really appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you have any comments as we get started? Anything that you'd like to tell our members before we launch into questions?
No, I just really appreciate this opportunity. I think it's a great way to, get the information out about the good work that our school district is doing and will continue to do. It's a very odd time in our society right now. And, we've got so many people out there in the community that have just surrounded our students and our teachers, our schools with so much love and support, and this is a time where we need to be working together. And so I just want to put that out there first, that I really appreciate all of the support of our community.
Yes, thank you. And I think, there's a renewed appreciation for everything that district administrators and our educators do every day. Since a lot of folks, a lot of people on this call are literally educating their children at home. So I think that there's a renewed respect for everything that you do. So thank you for being here. So first, we'll just kick it off with, kind of getting a temperature on how things are going with distance learning. What kinds of feedback have you been hearing from parents thus far?
As just with any large initiative, there are the good and the bad and the ugly. And, I think our district worked really, really hard over the spring break. That was kind of our first go with phase one learning, and listening to the first governor's directive, we had to put a plan in place. And so our district worked very hard so that when our teachers came back to distance learning, that they could spend time more on the social and emotional aspect with their students and not have to worry about lesson planning. And so that was one of our very first goals around distance learning. We have received very positive feedback from parents to the point that we are making it accessible as best we possibly can. We've for phase one, we distributed over 55,000 paper packets. So we have 64,000 students. So what we were finding out is that even though some of our families have access to technology and a device, they preferred to have the paper packet to work along with their student. And that varied. We found in distance learning phase two that we had less of a demand for paper packets, but much more of a demand on this continued engagement. So our teachers are working very, very hard every day to do reach out to our students and as well to our parents.
Absolutely. And probably continuing on, you're going to be learning, other ways that the gaps need to get filled in. So it sounds like the district is being as responsive as possible as those needs arise and as those priorities start shifting. Can you estimate how many students in the district have what you would consider adequate access to the technology that's needed for distance learning, to laptops, Wi-Fi, et cetera?
So we have about 16,000 students. We have 64,000 students in our district, and we have right now about 16,000 of our students who we know may not have access to a particular device, or there may only be one device in the family, and the parent, I need 2 or 3 devices because I've got students coming in and out, connecting with their teachers during the day. Thankfully, though, with the good work of the Education Alliance, who we wanted to make sure was stabilized as almost like a clearinghouse. So they've been able to put together, and I see Kendall and Skip on the line here too. Hi, Kendall. They've been able to put a program together in conjunctions with the Lions and ITS Logistics, to where people that want to donate computers or laptops or devices, that those companies will then go out, get them cleaned, and then we can distribute them to our families, which has just been a huge, huge benefit to our families. But we know that the gap still exists. We're also working along with AT&T and Charter Communications, because connectivity is also an issue. However, there have been programs put into place, and we need to do a better job on communicating those programs, such as Lifeline, to our families. So what we're going to start doing is putting together flyers when we go out and we distribute food, because that's another part of distance learning, and I think we'll probably talk about that a little bit later. But we want to put these flyers out to our families so that they know that they can have access free of charge, because connectivity is a big issue as well.
Absolutely. And shifting gears to some budgetary questions, which I know are certainly top of mind for folks in your office. How does the COVID-19 crisis specifically impact WC1 projects, whether current or future? And is there any scenario in which any of those funds might be diverted to the general fund in order to help with any budgetary concerns the district has?
So no, WC funds will not be converted to the general fund to help us with budgeting. So I'll just put that at top of mind for everybody right now. We cannot convert them to the general fund for that. But since Governor Sisolak has stated that construction is considered an essential business, that they are running. I mean, all of our programs are on time, but to be sure, the safety measures recommended from the CDC as well as OSHA, those are in full compliance on all of our capital sites right now. But they are extremely secure sites, and we want to keep them that way, as far as making sure that our construction companies, and they've just been amazing. They've just been so wonderful working with us and our capital projects teams. But Marcy Hers is on target. John C. Bohatch Elementary School, they are on target. Obviously, if you drive by where Wild Creek is and the new Hug High School, there's a ton of dirt moving. And so that project is moving right along. But to be sure, those safety aspects are top of mind for our construction companies as well.
Gotcha. And when it comes to the general budget, what if any kinds of cuts are we looking at for this fiscal year?
We are working alongside the governor's office, finance office, as well as the Nevada Department of Education, both to finish out this fiscal year as well as FY21. As everyone knows, the governor has put out recommendations for each one of the state agencies on reductions, both for FY20 and FY21. We have provided the Nevada Department of Education assistance on providing some reverted funds, and as far as state grants that we were able to revert back to help with the reductions on FY20. We're still waiting for a little bit more specific guidance as far as what FY21 is going to be looking like. And we just had a phone call. Every Friday, I have a phone call with the other superintendents throughout the state. And Superintendent Ebert, thankfully, was on that phone call as well. Her deputy superintendent, Heidi Hertz, was on that phone call. And they are working really, really hard with the governor's office to help us with those decisions. But at this point in time, we don't know what those cuts are going to actually look like.
Right, certainly. So one I guess you could call it a buzzword that has been coming up, at least, in a lot of media outlets these days, that as educators you've known for years, but for us in the general public perhaps is new for us, is the term learning loss. Mm-hmm. Now, could you describe what learning loss is and what concerns you might have about learning loss for students in the district, especially as we're heading into summertime?
Sure. So learning loss has to do with the amount of time that a child may have a gap in instruction. So I'm going to use a typical summer. So we would call that summer learning loss. And what we've tried to do in the past is to mitigate that through summer school sessions. And we use our graduation initiative funding and summer school funding. And that can be at the elementary, middle, or the high school. Coming into COVID, however, you will hear the term the COVID slide. And that is real. So what we have been working on within the district, because what we were concerned about with distance learning is equity and access. And what we did not want to do is to penalize any of our students or our families as well. So what we've done is we've determined that there will be no new content standards covered in this time of distance learning. However, our teachers are able to dive deeper into the content standards that they have already covered. And so a child is able to review skills, but what we want to be sure of is that everyone has the same access before we start covering new content. Now that we know that schools will be closed for the foreseeable future, at least until the end of this year, we're putting together our phase 3 distance learning, which still continues to make sure that our teachers are able to dive deep into the content standards already covered. But in some aspects, especially in high school, we are going to have teachers start to review new material, however, put it in such a way that there is no penalty to the student. And this morning, we just released our guiding document around grading for our teachers, which is built around the premise of no harm. So long as the student has access and is engaging with their teacher, and whether it's on their phone or whether it's through a device such as this, or whether it's texting, but some sort of engagement that the teacher is able to determine where the child is. Going into this summer, we are still putting our summer school programming together. First of all, we need to see what our funding is going to be like so that we can provide summer school. But that will be an opportunity to where we can kind of mitigate the COVID loss or the COVID slide, continually working on literacy skills and math skills for our students as well.
Excellent. And of course, that leads quite well into the next question, which was a big one on the minds of folks, about, of course, we don't have a crystal ball. There's no way to know what fall is going to be like. But in your estimation, how many kids do you think will be advancing to the next grade potentially in fall, and aren't ready to do so? And what are those benchmarks going to look like when it comes to advancing students forward, since this is all unprecedented?
So obviously, this is no fault of our students. And so again, I'm going to talk about no harm. So if a school had previously met with the parent, and the teacher and principal had met with the parent, and retention was an option, then that's very separate and distinct from where we are now. So no child, in fact, I had to put a Connect Ed message out on April 1st because there was a not very kind April Fool's joke going out there that our students would be retained, and that is simply not the case. But we had a lot of, for all the right reasons, a lot of upset students about that. So we wanted to dispel that rumor. But going into the fall, you're absolutely right. We don't have a crystal ball, but we are standing up 3 committees that will be phased in from our distance learning committees, having teachers and principals also involved for an elementary, middle, and high school teaching and learning team. And so we want to get that work started now as far as what learning is going to look like that first quarter. Because you're absolutely right, our teachers are going to have to take a look at the previous grades standards, and this is difficult work, because when you think about high school as well, and the courses within math, you would typically take algebra and then geometry and then algebra 2. So those teachers need to start, having those conversations, and what's that going to look like, so that our students are very well prepared as we come into the second quarter and come into the second half of the first semester. But we are putting those teams together. The other aspect that we have to take into consideration are, what are the guidelines going to be by the time we head back to school? Is there going to be social distancing? So are we taking a look at limiting the number of students in the class, and how does that look like? Many districts across the country are talking about staggered start times, longer school days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And this is just an example. It's not, something that we would be doing, but, the primary grades go. And then on Tuesday and Thursday, your intermediate grades go. One thing we need to take, into consideration is making this in parallel with how the economy is going to be opening up, right? Because our parents may be going back to work. And so we have to take that into consideration on what this looks like as well.
Right, absolutely. And as you alluded to earlier, the district doesn't just serve as means to educate our students. The district also often serves in a social services capacity, providing food, providing clothing, providing essential hygiene needs to families at their schools. What has that process looked like in this time of COVID?
That was when we knew that we were going to be going into distance learning. Food security was our #1 priority. And so we have a food security working group that works in conjunction with the Northern Nevada Food Bank. We've got partners such as communities and schools that are helping out, but they meet every single day. And thousands of meals have been delivered. So our nutrition services department is standing up. The kitchen, our central kitchen is open, but it is in secure tight. I couldn't even go to that place if I wanted to, because we have, that's our lifeline to our families, and putting nutritious meals. But what we've been able to do, again, is to work with the Northern Nevada Food Bank. Our kitchens prepare the food, and then Northern Nevada Food Bank helps us distribute it. And so we have about 20 sites district-wide that have meals ready to go. And we usually put about 3 to 4 days worth of food together for our families so that families don't have to keep coming out. But all social distancing, all PP&E guidelines are followed for that. So food security is huge. The other one that I'll spend some time on is the social emotional aspect. This is traumatic for many of our families. And so we have to, in working alongside the Nevada Department of Education, we track attendance on a weekly basis. However, we've gone above and beyond that, and our teachers are reaching out at least one time a week for that. And that's just having conversations with students. Our counselors are helping out with that. Our social workers are helping out with that. Our truancy department is still doing what we call residency checks. So if we haven't heard from a family in about a week's period of time, our truancy department is going out and either leaving a letter, knocking on the door, abiding by all social distancing guidelines, but they're actually visiting our families. And last week they did over 500 visits. Wow. Throughout our school district, checking on families, delivering food, delivering hygiene, delivering home distance learning packets if the family didn't have transportation. We mailed out, I want to say, over 250 of those packets just this last week for those families that don't have transportation. So you're absolutely right. We do, have other aspects other than academic that we're very, very concerned about with our families.
And thank you for pulling out all the stops to address the needs of our families, because that's where it starts. That's where education starts, is at home. So thank you for doing that and ensuring the safety and well-being of not just the students, but families as well. I think just one quick final question, and then we've actually got some great thoughtful questions coming in chat as well. So in closing, how can we as the business community, as chamber members, best support the district, especially when it comes to graduation this June?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think many of your members know that not only as the interim superintendent, but as the mom of a senior, I absolutely understand how important graduations are. We met with our Student Advisory Council last week, got some great feedback from them. We meet with our high school principals this Wednesday. We have a meeting with our high school principals because it's important to get their input and feedback. But the chamber members, the business community, they have just been, it will just blow your mind with how many people have just wanted to step up and help out with this. And that's where I feel really good about. because we're not going to be able to do this ceremony as we've done in the past. You know, it's been a very concerted effort with our graduations through Lawler, but we have a whole team that works together on that. We have a project manager, Vanjie Russell, that helps us with graduations. This time it's going to be a little bit different. So, you know, we've had community members ask, you know, can we have it at the drive-in? Can we use the GSR? Can we use the Livestock Event Center? Can we use Mackey Stadium? I had one beautiful person write in and say, you know, can we line the graduates up down Veterans Parkway and shoot off fireworks? All very, very good ideas. But the number one thing is the safety and health of our students, their families, and our employees. And so that's going to be the undergirding for when we do make the final decision on what graduation is going to take a look like. And it was interesting listening to the students. There wasn't a huge want or need for just virtual. They wanted maybe a combination of both, you know, virtual, yes, but they still want to have that physical contact and what that looks like under these particular guidelines that we're going to be through, you know, coming through.
Sure. Well, please keep us apprised and let us know if there's anything we can do, because we are all in for our graduates.
There will be.
Excellent.
There will be plenty.
Wonderful. We are waiting. So I thought this was a fantastic question that came in through chat. And had to do with IEP programs. Since we've got just shy of 5 minutes left, could you briefly define what an IEP is and how those are being implemented through this time of COVID?
So IEP stands for Individualized Education Program, and that is a specific legal document that our children that are receiving special education services all must have. And so within that IEP, there are goals and objectives that must be worked on, and it's called specially designed instruction. So our special education department is working very hard with our families to make sure that there are outreach, additional programming materials provided to those families, whether it is assistive technology, AT, but we have occupational therapy, we've got different types of programming, speech and language that still must be provided. And that was something that we worked in conjunction with the Nevada Department of Education as well, right when distance learning was happening, that the plans are put into place.
All right. And on the flip side, we received another question from members about honors courses in particular, and what kinds of honors class or AP class content is being provided for students right now.
So our advanced placement, which is AP, teachers are working right alongside with our counselors as well. And there will be AP testing. It's going to be online. So we've also worked with the College Board on what that's going to be looking like for our students. Honors diplomas, advanced diplomas, our career and college readiness, CCR diplomas. Those are all something that are still moving forward. So our students will still be eligible for that. Whether they have received the honors or advanced diploma, they will still be eligible for that as well. Along with our seal of biliteracy, we're still moving forward with that.
Alrighty. And we probably have time for one more question. It looks like we have one in particular about field trips and what those could look like for the fall, which that's tough, but that is something that is part of the education experience.
And that's a great question. You know, virtual field trips are really becoming popular. And in fact, I was lucky enough to receive from Virginia City, somebody sent me a link to a virtual field trip of the Virginia City graveyard, which was just, it's amazing. It is awesome. An Eagle Scout put it together. But, you know, we need to take a look at some of these virtual types of field trips that are available to our students and what that's going to look like. An entire world exists out there. And, you know, the reading that I've been doing along with my team, there is learning is going to look a little bit different for us, and we need to be prepared for that. I was listening to National Public Radio the other day, and they had a speaker on there about what this is going to look like in the future, because we could be coming in and out of quarantine.
Right, absolutely. This is, in some way, shape, or form, we may be facing elements of social distancing for a long while to come. Hopefully shorter than longer, but it is part of our lives. So that about does it. Hopefully we don't get cut off here on this call. Zoom is so strict about the 30-minute deadline. But again, Dr. McNeill, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. We had more than 90 people on at one point, so it's
Oh, great.
yeah. So it's very clear that people want to hear from you, and I thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, and thank you to everyone. Please stay safe and healthy.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you later.
All righty.
More calls.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye now.